Guys, how's it going? Today I am inspired to share my personal story with alcohol and drinking and not drinking, and I'm hoping this will be useful, helpful to you because I have found a huge benefit in my life from not drinking alcohol, and I'm so glad that I've discovered this whole social life and personal life with not drinking. No one ever told me growing up that I don't have to drink alcohol. It was just such a big part of social life that it was never even in my head the idea that I didn't have to drink. So I did have alcohol, and it really didn't add anything good to my life. So once I've kind of came across this idea that I don't have to drink alcohol, and I really stopped having it and became really free of that social norm in my head that I ever have to have it. I absolutely love it so much that I never think about it. And I mean, I listed all the benefits here I'm going to tell you about, but this is what inspired this video, is because I recently had friends come over and visit us for a while, and we had dinner, and I was asking her about being vegan and what dishes she cooks for her family and like all these plant-based ideas, and sharing my journey about that. And she asked me, we were having non-alcohol beer, and she said, "Oh, you don't drink?" I said, "No." And she was really intrigued by that, really curious, because she's also been looking to cut back on the drinking. And so I really do believe that my example kind of inspired her to explore more of that area. So that's why I am creating this video, so that hopefully my personal story will help you find the answers that you are looking for and how to stop drinking. So I'll start from the very beginning. Growing up, I'm Russian. Growing up in Russia, moving to Canada when I was 13, and growing up here in Canada after 13 on. So Russians drink a lot, but luckily my family, my parents don't drink a lot. On like special occasions, on New Year's, my parents would have champagne, and they were never ever drinking at home. Maybe when my dad once in a while would have some cognac if he had like a rough day, but that was almost never. And on special occasions, again, they would have maybe a little bit of cognac or wine. When we would host people, my parents would serve wine, white or red. And so then growing up here in Canada, if I was hosting a party for my friends, we would buy some beer and wine and we would drink, right? Going camping, we would have some alcohol, but it was not a lot from like when I was old enough to have alcohol. And I remember getting sick on it a couple times camping, just having too much with friends, right? And so it wasn't anything worthwhile remembering, but it wasn't definitely something that I grew up with in my household, which I'm kind of happy about. I do have a grandfather in Russia who has passed, and he was a true alcoholic. And so I remember, that's on my mom's side. So I remember he was not in our city where we lived, but I do remember visiting him and knowing about it. So we didn't talk about it much, but it is a big problem in Russia. And so, of course, I was always afraid to have a husband who's an alcoholic, right? Just didn't want that in my life, because the stigma of a full-blown alcoholic is really strong in Russia. So I didn't want anything to do with it, because the stereotype is of like these full-blown alcoholics who all they do is drink. And so that growing up with that huge stigma about it, huge part of the culture that some people do that, really made an imprint on me that it is bad. We need to avoid it, and it's terrible. And you know, there's like in movies, people show these really drunk people, and so just in my head, it was black and white, good or bad, right? So then I didn't really, like, again, socially, I would have some drinks growing up, like as I guess, 16, 17, like older than that. And then I met my husband when I was 23, and he's Canadian, fully Canadian. And the Canadian culture that I was introduced to here with him and his friends and his family it's also drinking, right? Alcohol, everyone drinks everywhere, right? So, and we would go out clubbing, and even with him and in my Russian friends, we'd go clubbing, everyone drinks. But I did drive, so I would always, if I was driving, I would limit myself to one beer, and I had no problem. I would just drink water the rest of the time, and I would drive, no problem. And so, but I would say my drinking career started around when I met my husband. We would go out a lot, and just because that's how he was kind of, I guess, not born. That's just the culture of all the people that we knew. Everyone was just drinking all the time. And even just on the weeknight, we would, have a glass of wine with dinner or a beer, and that was just the norm. And so we would do that. And at first I questioned it, but then everyone convinced me that this is just normal and this is fine. And what's wrong with it? We're not an alcoholic. We're just having one drink with dinner. And then weekends we would do it. We'd get together with his family. Everyone would be having beer or wine. And definitely on all the special occasions, we would do that. And so then I would call it my drinking career began, because it just be a lot more drinking for me than it was before. So then I did get sick once, going out, puking afterwards. And nothing really that memorable until then later I had kids. Of course, I didn't drink when I was pregnant. Then having kids, I was 27 when I had my first kid. And my husband cooks really well. He's a really great cook. He loves to cook good food. He loves to experiment. So he would be cooking dinners. And all these dinners were so good that in our heads was like, well, we need to have some wine with it because it's so good, and just why not, right? So we would have a glass of wine or two. And then being a mother, being tired, and that felt like a special treat if I was to have a glass of wine with dinner. And so, and when my first little baby was born, we would put him to bed at 7. And then by that time, my husband was done cooking, and we'd sit down, we'd have dinner, special dinner, and wine. So it turned into this routine where it was every night we'd have wine. And also he's had courses. He is a sommelier where he knows a lot about wine. He was buying really good wine. And so we were having wine every night. And because it was now becoming like this everyday thing just with wine, I remember, sorry, my kids needed me, but now I can talk. So I remember having this memory once sitting there and waiting for my husband to finish cooking the chicken, the dinner. And I was holding a baby in my arms, and I wanted the wine. And so I would ask him, can I have some wine before dinner? And I would have this glass. And I just remember not liking wanting the wine because it was not a good wanting, right? It was more like needing, right? Not physically, but I think mentally. It felt like a treat. It was delicious. I'm tired, right? Like motherhood, right? It's kind of, could be boring, could be lots of work, doing things you don't want to do. So mentally, I felt like I deserved or wanted something special, some treat. And so I didn't like that, right? So, and then my husband going away or somewhere on a trip, and me asking him for wine because he was in charge of buying wine, and he knew which bottles were more expensive, less expensive, whatever. And so I didn't like having to ask him for wine. I didn't like wanting it. I didn't like having to ask him for wine. I just didn't like being that person who was asking for a wine bottle, right? And, when he would be away and I would put kids to bed, I would be excited to have that wine. I just didn't like being that person. So fast forward a couple years, I had my first kid, I had my second kid, and then I got pregnant with twins. And of course, I never drank through pregnancies. And then after that, I remember that after my twins were 1, I started soul searching for what I want to do with my life. And I came across a life coach, Brooke Castillo, that really changed my life, inspired me to become a life coach. And she went through a journey of her own, stopping drinking, and she shared that with everyone. And I remember listening to her videos, and I took what she said, and I was ready. I was ready to not have, I didn't want to be that person, especially my kids getting older. Like the twins were 1, the other ones were 3 and 5. I did not want to be the mom that was having a glass of wine every day at dinner. That's not somebody I wanted to be. So I got some coaching from a friend, and she really helped me to really break it down into smaller pieces of what exactly it meant for me to drink or not drink. And it came down to, first, it was kind of replacing the daily glass of wine with something else, like a sparkling water. And honestly, now it's been 7 years that I haven't been having alcohol, so hard for me to remember. So I think that part was quite easy. I stopped having it wasn't a physical addiction for me, it was more mental. And the harder part actually wasn't that hard, but it was something I definitely planned for. I got coached. I was having that special occasion drink, right? Everyone's celebrating, woohoo, happy birthday or happy new year. I got coaching on that, and we planned, what will I do? What will I say when that happens? And what will I drink? And what my response will be, so that I am prepared to to tackle that transition period from drinking to not drinking, to making it a habit. So, and I remember we planned for me to have a glass, like a wine glass, a special glass, right? Because that's what you do when you're having a special occasion. You have wine in a wine glass, right? So I was saying, like, I really just want to have that, celebrate that moment, but not have the alcohol. So I would have this special drink, special wine glass, and I would fill it up with sparkling water and lime and ice. And I remember doing that and sitting down on a chair and pausing, right? Because the whole idea was to really address the feeling of, okay, I'm having a special moment, and I don't want to feel like I'm missing out on celebrating a special moment, or just, like a Saturday night drink with others. And I don't want to have alcohol, but how can I still have that moment? So that's what we really came up with as a plan. And that's what Brooks Castillo suggests, is you separate the two, right? And then you plan on what you will do and how you will react, and all the things that you will think and feel when that moment comes. And so I really practiced saying, like, knowing what I'm going to say. No thanks, I'll just have a sparkling water, or no thanks, I don't want any. So I was 36 years old, and around Thanksgiving, October was the last time, I think, was when I had my last alcohol drink. And so I'm 41, going to be 42 next month. So it's going to be 7 years now that I haven't had any alcohol. I have had sips of Doug's beer when there was like no other beer available, and non-alcohol beer available, and I was really thirsty. Actually, this summer in France, I had more than a couple sips of his beer, and I felt tired. The alcohol made me tired, like it made me really sleepy. So I was like, whoa, this is not something I'm used to. So it's been 7 years, and I wrote down a whole page of benefits that I am experiencing from never having to drink, and I'm going to tell you all of them. So one of the first one I wrote down is freedom from mental guilt from drinking. So I imagine like before, when I used to have wine, and I didn't want to be that mom who has wine with dinner every day, I would feel like it would be like guilt, right, over having that wine. And so I didn't like being that person. So the shame of being that person, I wasn't proud of the person I was being when I was doing that. So having that freedom from the guilt and also the hangovers, complete, I mean, I never have a hangover, right? So extra weight, I probably would be 10 more pounds overweight from just the alcohol if I was drinking. So freedom from that, I don't have that. I don't have to ever worry about having that extra weight from alcohol. And the being, freedom from never have to worry about what that looks like in front of the kids either, right? I don't want to have that household. That's not me, and I don't have a good reason for that to be me. So social, I never have to be embarrassed or worry about being embarrassed in front of people at social settings like Christmas parties. Tonight we're actually going to a neighbor's house, and I don't have any space mentally taken up by worrying about drinking too much, saying some inappropriate things, or being just drunk and driving home. We don't have to drive home because they're our neighbors, but other places where we go, we have to drive. I don't have to worry about that, driving. So that's what I wrote down, driving, no problem. And also hockey. So my son plays hockey. He's 14, but now he's getting older, so his hockey practices and games are getting to be later and later. So some games and practices end at 10 p.m. and sometimes they're on a Friday night at 9 to 10 or Saturday. And it never even occurred to me to even think about that this is the benefit that I have. But when I was writing this list, I was like, this is so awesome that Friday night, I don't ever have to think, oh, I wish I didn't have to drive my son or pick him up because I wish I could just have a drink at home and not worry about driving. Like, I don't want to be that person, right? Just like, that is not something that reflects my values. I don't want to resent having to drive my son to hockey over having a drink at home, right? Because if I drink, I can't drive. So that, I never even thought of it until now. And I think this is just freedom. Again, freedom from being impaired, freedom from resenting to do something for my kid over putting up with my habit of drinking or needing to drink. That's so awesome to have that and never ever even have to consider if I have to drive my kid at 10, 11, right, as they're getting older and their social life will expand, I'll have to pick them up later. I don't ever have to worry about it, right? So I love that. So that's one of the things. Energy. Like I said, I had that couple, I don't know, maybe I had this much of Doug's beer over the summer in Paris, and I was just zapped of energy. I was sleepy. Did not enjoy that. And that is what would happen back then when I used to have wine every night with dinner, 1 or 2 glasses, but that was enough for me to then, after dinner, I'd have to put my kids to bed. And because I had so many kids, I always had to put a kid to bed sometime. I would just be sleepy, but also not like in a nice way sleepy, like grumpy sleepy, because I have to be doing something. I have to like brush toddlers' teeth and make them shower and make them put on pajamas and like all these things they don't want to do. And also I don't want to be doing this. And so I turned into an angry, sleepy, grumpy mom. And I knew that was happening, like the wine was making it worse because it was making me sleepy. So that the energy is just back. Like I have steady energy. I might still be angry a lot of times because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, especially the twins. So, but I have energy to do what I need to do with my kids, like way more energy than I did when I had alcohol. Same thing with social settings, like having alcohol at a party. I would have to either keep having alcohol to have the buzz or keep the energy going. But if I stopped, I would just be sleepy. So I don't like that. Having the physical energy is amazing, and having mental energy also freed up. Like I said, the freedom from guilt and all the worrying, or even like having worry about how much am I going to drink, right? Like, I'm sure if I had been drinking still, I would be trying to stop drinking. And then I would have to spend a lot of energy thinking, okay, how much I'm going to drink tonight? How much can I have? How much I shouldn't have? How much did I have last night? And how am I going to drive? Who's going to drive? Like, and trying to lose weight with having alcohol too, right? I would have to think about, okay, how many glasses of wine can I have this week? There is a evening that I remember, I already had kids. I went to hang out with a few friends, and it was a bit of a drive away, and they were having some wine. I think we were watching Bachelorette, and I was debating to have wine, not to have wine, and they all convinced me to have some wine, and I said, but I have to drive. And there's a couple who offered to drive me home, which was a 20-minute drive for them one way, and then 20-minute drive for them to go home. And they all offered to do that at night for me, so I could have one glass of wine. And then in the morning, they offered to pick me up from my house and drive me to my car to get my car. And I had forgotten about this completely until recently. Somehow, I guess I was planning for this video, I remembered. And when I think about it now, it seems so ridiculous to me to go through all this trouble of driving a person so they can have a glass of wine. It was really nice of them. But why it's ridiculous to me is because it was not worth it at all. Like, at all, when I think about it. And even back then, when I was driving, going home and doing all this stuff in the morning to get my car, I thought, this is ridiculous. For one glass of wine, was it worth it? Not at all. Did it add to my night? It actually took away from my night. I remember, because it felt like such a hassle to have to go through all this trouble to get the car and relieve the car and trouble all these people for driving me. And so I'm so happy that I don't have to ever think about this now and have to debate that. And the other benefit that I have is my husband has the benefit that I can always drive us home and he can have a drink if he wants to. So that's another benefit, right? And the other benefit I love is that I can be an example for people who are really curious about life without alcohol. But because we live in a society that's so full of, you should be drinking, if you're not drinking, you must be an alcoholic, then it's great to have people like me and others who just don't do that. And it's really, it makes me feel good. So the other thing that I love about not drinking is that how I think of myself as a person who doesn't drink. It makes me really proud of myself to have made that choice, but also not that I had to do a lot of work for it, but I'm just proud that I'm making this choice because that's the choice I want to make. And I don't have to struggle with physically needing alcohol or feeling social pressure to drink it. So I'm just really proud that I kind of got out of the jail, that social construct that we have, that, you know, drinking is just what we do in social situations. I'm so happy I don't have that mental jail anymore for me. So I'm just so proud that I had really pushed through with this mental idea that I'm like, I don't have to drink anymore. Like, to me, it was such a revelation that I feel like nobody told me. And I feel like people have to tell other people, like, you don't have to drink. It's such a freeing thing. Like, you don't have to if you don't want to. But I was pressured into, I feel like we all are. And I had a neighbor who shared with me that she actually felt pressured to drink on work situations where she was afraid that people are going to think that she's an alcoholic if she doesn't drink. So for her, I guess it was this, the two were linked. There must be something wrong with you if you're not drinking. And so she, of course, for her, if that's going on in her head, she was afraid to not drink. She didn't want people to think that something's wrong with her. So when I coached her and we talked and I discovered it, I just realized that I don't have that connection in my head at all. maybe other people looking at me, maybe they think that, but I don't know it. So I'm not weighted down by it. I'm actually so happy I don't drink. I'm happy to tell people, and I'm really proud of that fact. I'm like, I don't have to, and I don't do it, and I'm so happy about it. And there's so many benefits that I've don't even think of anymore because it's just part of my life. But going to meet new people in different parties and things like that, I do come across, and I just notice, oh, people are drinking, and it just seems like a foreign life to me now when I see that, right? So that I don't have to entertain anymore. So I'm happy about that. So I already told you kind of how I did it. So I'm sharing my story so that in case you're curious, you can keep on looking for the solution for you. If you're physically addicted, that will be a different solution. I don't have the solution for you. If you're mentally dependent on it to have a treat at the end of the day, to celebrate, to relax, to unwind, then I highly recommend searching out a coach for that, because that really helped me. I think her name is Rachel, I forgot. And she has a podcast. It's called Take a Break from Drinking. And she is amazing. The coaching concepts that I found helpful, she also teaches. And I believe just her podcast will help you a lot already. And then look out for people like me, myself, who lead a life without alcohol, and look for what are they thinking about alcohol. Because for me, now, part of my life, I don't ever even think about it as part of my future planning, or me reflecting on the night before, or like tonight going to a party. I wrote down like what this allows me to look forward to chatting with my neighbors. I'm really excited to catch up with them. I'm excited to have the charcuterie board I'm gonna make. I made chocolate salami. That is a Russian thing my mom used to make when we were little, and so I love making it every year now. And I'm excited. I made it. It looks pretty. I sliced it up, so I'm excited to share that with them and have some of it. I'm excited to see the kids do gingerbread houses, and in none of it I have any thoughts about alcohol, which is freedom, right? So, and also the other part, I didn't write it down, but with having freedom from thinking about alcohol, I have freedom to tackle other challenges in my life that I'm working on that I don't think I would have space for if I was still drinking, because I would then be trying to stop drinking. I was already not happy with having alcohol, right? Oh, it's a little bit slanted. So because I've already tackled that issue in my life, and I don't have to think about it anymore, I don't have to dread it, I don't have to feel guilty about it, I don't have to work on the weight issue from extra alcohol. Now I am working on getting really good at intermittent fasting, which you've been listening to me, and I'm getting really good at nurturing my body with fiber, lots of vegetables, lots of fruit. So focusing on that, hopefully losing 10 to 15 pounds to really optimize my health. I have space in my life to think about alternate day fasting, which is something I've been playing around with and trying it. It's just a different intermittent fasting strategy, again, to lose some weight and to increase my energy. And so I have space for that in my life because I already tackled that other issue with alcohol. So once I minimize the sweets, I love the sweets and I love the bread, although I am still making space for really good bread in my life because I love it so much. The sweets I have to kind of cut back on a lot. So again, this is the challenge that I'm working on, and I'm grateful that I have space in my life to do that. And I think intermittent fasting is really helping me tackle that. So that is a great benefit, I think. The freedom from so many mental problems that came along with drinking, guilt and worry and dread, and just the mental chatter that happens when you allow that in your life. Then when you're trying to stop drinking, I would be having this chatter in my head all day. Should I drink? Should I not drink? How many drinks should I have? Well, what if others are gonna be having it? Well, what if I don't want to have it? Well, so I've heard that some people avoid social gatherings, and I feel sorry that that happens. That would suck, right? So avoiding meeting people because you just don't want, you want to stick to your plan not to drink, right? So all of that I'm so grateful for, and I never even have to think about any of these things going on because of work that I did 7 years ago, of something I really wanted. I really wanted to not drink. I wanted to not have this problem. And I'm really glad I did that work. I made the decision. I worked with a coach every week for a few months. I don't remember how long. My husband argues that it was easy for me because I didn't have the physical addiction. And I do think that's true because was never a heavy drinker, ever. It was more a mental dependence on having that treat or having that something special at the end of the day that was like nice, And so having done the work to get rid of that is really brought me so much benefit for all the years. And not to even speak about health benefits, right? We all know the health benefits of not drinking are so impactful on our health that I don't have to ever worry about that, right? So let me just think of what I celebrate. So now I love non-alcohol beer. That to me is so enjoyable. I have it as a treat. I buy it for my house if I want to have it. I have it at the party if I want to have it. When we go out, I love to have it. It's so thirst quenching. It's delicious. And it doesn't drain my energy. And it's just so bubbly. I'm so grateful that they made that. And there's no alcohol. I love it. And I would probably have wine if it tasted good and didn't have alcohol. But whenever I tried non-alcohol wine, it tasted like juice and actually worse than juice. So I'm just happy to have juice. So I'm so happy that I can celebrate with that and mocktails, right? So whenever I feel like going even more special, I have some sort of mocktail or I request one if we're at our family gathering. I probably wouldn't request it at a party. I would just go along, and I have bubbly. So bubbly is another special drink that I love to have. And that feels special to me. I love the bubbly, the flavor, and it's just so awesome. So I'm so happy that I have those outlets to kind of satisfy the mental desire for variety, for something special. It's so great. And I love when my parents visit, I give some non-alcohol beer to my dad and we cheers. It's just great. I love it. So I wrote that down. Okay. So I think I talked about everything. Energy, driving, hockey, and I'm excited. I talked about what I'm excited about. So overall, I'm really proud. It seems effortless now, so it's kind of feels weird for me to be proud of it because I'm like, oh, I didn't do anything. But I think I have to acknowledge the work that I did back then and the decisions that I made. So this is what keeps me driving me to solve the next challenge, the next problem that I have of like the weight, that I'm going to be really proud of myself that it did the work now to lose this weight, and what work that I have to do now, like one day in 7 years, it will be second nature to me. It will just be a habit to me, the way I live, to then have the results that I will have with my weight and my health, right? So now, for example, I think it's been 8 months since I've been intermittent fasting steadily. And it's such a habit to me now to just skip breakfast. Second nature. I don't even think about it. I often forget to, I don't forget to, but I don't think of feeding breakfast to my kids. I just remind them. I said, do you want breakfast? And I actually respect when they tell me they don't want breakfast, because now 2 out of 4 of my boys don't want breakfast. And so I just make sure that if some who do want breakfast, I say, okay, go ahead, go eat something. And so this is second nature to me, and this is already bringing so much health benefits to me and mental benefits that I don't have to have that debate. Because I remember for years I would have the debate in my head, Should I have breakfast? Should I not have breakfast? Is it the most important part? Well, maybe I should have a bulletproof coffee and that will help my fasting, or maybe it was not going to help my fasting. And so I had so much mental chatter about just breakfast that I'm happy that I don't have anymore. And now it's freed up, the space is freed up to tackle the next problem or the next project that I'm working on, or go work out or plan other things that I have to do. So one by one, I'm tackling these things. And I think acknowledging the work that we put into tackling each problem is beneficial for us going forward into the next problem. So if you have any questions, shoot me a comment below, or email me, or send me a fan mail if you're listening to this on the podcast. I'd be happy to hear from you. And I am so excited for you to keep on looking for the answer that you will work for you. What worked for me might not work for you. For me, it really worked to identify as a person who doesn't drink, because I thought of that person as such an amazing person who is so proud of themselves, and they're like free to drop the social norm that is such a false idea and such a jail, that I felt like I broke out of this super old thinking. It's like, in the 50s people smoked. I feel like that person who came out of that and realized, I don't have to smoke to be cool. It just feels like such a revelation of the truth that you're like, woohoo, I won, I found the truth, and I am no longer bound by this normal social norm. That I really identified that, and I think that drove me to keep on not drinking. Because if you're a person who thinks, oh my gosh, people are gonna think that I am an alcoholic if I don't drink, then you're for sure gonna avoid being that person, right? You're just not gonna wanna be that person. But I identified as this awesome person who was like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. She doesn't drink. How's that possible? That's amazing. She's just free. Then I wanted to keep on being that person. So I love it. And whenever people ask me, and I noticed some really strange things when people ask me, they ask me cautiously because they probably think that I have a drinking problem, right? They're like, so you don't drink? Why don't you drink, right? They're afraid to ask. They don't know how to ask in a nice way. And I just see that hesitation, and I'm like, oh, it just doesn't add anything to my life. And I'm like, I don't like it. I said, it makes me really tired, which is true. And it's just what I say when people ask me. And actually, this one neighbor that we're going over to tonight, I think she must have seen me post about this on Instagram that I don't drink. So she never even asked me why I don't drink. She just always offers me bubbly. And at first I was kind of sad. I'm like, oh, I wish I had a chance to talk about it, because I'm so proud of this identity, right? And now I'm kind of used to it. I'm like, okay, and it's great. Everyone's used to me not drinking. And a lot of the time people don't even know that you're not drinking. If you're having a drink, they're just assuming that's alcohol, right? And the other thing is, I have way more fun without alcohol. I was never a good drunk person. I used to get really upset or angry. My insecurities would come out, and I would be jealous of my boyfriend, husband, and I would say inappropriate things because I'm Russian and I have no filter, and or tired, or just tired. And so then it would just be super. And then after having that happen, the next time I would be drinking, I'd be super self-conscious and like trying not to be myself, right? So just having this not part of my life, I love social gatherings because everyone is inhibited, everyone's drinking. So not only do I get to be entertained by people who are drinking and are a little bit tipsy, and I think they're being ridiculous or funny or no filter, and I feel, and in turn, I have gained more confidence from having to face these social situations without alcohol and just being myself and having to figure out how to, have conversations with strangers all the time. And now I figured out that just genuinely be curious in people and asking the questions helps 90% of the time to have a good time. You're asking questions that you're really curious about, and just to have a good time. And often I feel now, because I guess my confidence increased, that I can really ask really blunt questions and really cut to the chase, and like, just because I've have experience in all these social situations over the years, then I can ask more interesting questions. I can just make jokes better, and I just have better control over myself, over what's the conversations going on. I just have the confidence is really, this is actually, I didn't write that down, but the confidence is one of the biggest benefits that has really confidence in myself, and like being comfortable with who I am and just being honest. So that I really think is definitely worth stop drinking for sure, right? So I can enjoy being myself, and I can tackle the next challenge, the next problem in my life, and keep on growing myself, keep on getting more confident, and keep on just having a better time. So I hope you're inspired, and I would love to hear how it's going for you. If you have any other questions, I'd love to help, and I'm hoping that this personal story really helped you take that next step towards less drinking, and hopefully maybe no drinking at all. All right, love you all, guys. Bye.